Okay, hello everyone. This is introduction to Vaadin 7, or more exactly, introduction to web development with Vaadin 7. My name is Michael Tzukanov, and I'm currently working as a Vaadin developer at Vaadin. I'm working mostly with customers' projects, but I'm also contributing to the Vaadin core and giving presentations like this and giving trainings and all other interesting stuff. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what is Vaadin, why do we need Vaadin, and how do I use Vaadin, how to use it. We will have a live coding session, so we will create a Vaadin application from scratch live. Then we'll talk about how does it work internally, and at the end we'll talk about how to get started. So I'll give you all the necessary links and tools how to start with Vaadin. And then we'll have a Q&A session. Now, I want to ask you, how many of you have heard about Vaadin before? Oh, nice. So usually not that many people have heard. And how many of you have used Vaadin? Okay, a couple of guys. Great. So let's get started. For those of you who don't know, what is Vaadin? And maybe for some of you it will be a surprise. Vaadin is a female reindeer. Those creatures exist in Finland and Lapland, and the word Vaadin means a female reindeer. However, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a framework, user interface framework for rich web applications development. And our logo is still a reindeer, so you can see the antlers and the head, but it also symbolizes two notions important for Vaadin. This is the Java, and the other one is HTML and all related technologies that are needed to produce a working web application. Vaadin is distributed with Apache 2.0 license, so it's completely open source, freeware, anyone can use it for any purpose. If you may wonder how we earn money, then we provide consulting, we provide customer component development, and trainings and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so why do we need Vaadin? Let's take a look at the maybe not so famous web application. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but I guess quite many. And this has a very sleek and nice, appealing interface. So to develop that kind of interface, we need quite a huge budget. And this site has it because it has millions of users, although each user contributes very little, but it adds up to a huge sum. However, in business applications, you have quite limited budget because you have quite limited amount of users. And the expectations of your users are usually to see something like this. But, yeah, these are their expectations, but they get something like this in reality, or something similar. Maybe that's a bit exaggerated, but not that far from reality. Okay, somebody disagrees, but we can discuss it later. Right, so the challenge is to build a consumer-grade UX with business system budget. And here, this is one of the reasons why Vaadin exists. So, how Vaadin provides solution to this problem? There are three important points about Vaadin. Vaadin has rich components, and that's what we're gonna talk about now. So, Vaadin components have a nice user interface. That's one of their qualities. And then we have the data source model that all Vaadin components use. And then we'll talk about theming as well. Now, we can go to Vaadin sampler. Unfortunately, I have to hold this microphone. And I want to demonstrate you some Vaadin components. So this is Vaadin sampler. It's a Vaadin application as well, so it demonstrates all different features in Vaadin and all different components. So let's take a look at the, for example, dates. The date picker, for example. So this is a component that you need a couple of lines of code to use it. And it provides you with all the functionality you need to select a date and time. Here in Vaadin sampler, you can have you can set different properties. So you can define the resolution, for example, date, and the time options disappear. You can select a different locale. So if we find Italy here, then it will be in Italian. And you can also show week numbers for some locales. So you have quite a few interesting components. For example, this is the calendar. So you can drag and drop here. All these come for free, and you can see the code, how to use this. You can copy paste this to your program and it will reproduce the same functionality. Let's go back to our slides. There is also a couple of full applications that you can see on Vaadin site, demo.vaadin.com. So this is an application built fully in Java. It doesn't require any client-side coding except some CSS styling. So just to impress you, you can, for example, drag and drop here in the calendar. Yeah. All right. So in your free time, you can go to demo.vaadin.com and get impressed. So Vaadin provides support for all these browsers, not the IE 6.7, but IE 8 and higher. It also supports tablets and phones, although you might need to optimize your applications for those. Another interesting thing is that because we have a big community, the users contribute to Vaadin. And we have a Vaadin directory where anyone can upload an add-on for Vaadin. And many of our Vaadin employees create Vaadin add-ons and upload them. And many people from the community create. So if you need custom functionality, then there is high probability that something like that was already built. Sorry. Right. So the directory provides with the functionality to give a description of a component. Then you can have some screenshots, code examples, and by copy-pasting this code example, you will get a working component in your application. Well, before that, of course, you need to somehow to import the component into the application, so you can use the Maven dependency here, copy-paste it to your POM XML file, and it will be downloaded automatically. Okay, let's talk about the data source. This is one of the features of Vaadin. Data source model is there to help you to show your data in Vaadin components. Because for any application, you have some kind of database or some data that you need to show. Now, to abstract the data, we've created those three interfaces, the main interfaces. Property has some value. Item is a collection of properties, and a container is a collection of items. If we compare this to a database terminology, then property is a field, item is a record, and container is a table. Now, whenever you implement those three methods, three interfaces, then your data will be available for Vaadin components. And I will show you in an example later when we'll start live coding. There are some more extended containers, but you don't have to use them if you don't need to. Now, all those implementations of containers already exist. Probably you don't really need to write anything, depending on your application, but usually there is some existing implementation, so you can just find it on the directory. Okay, so let's talk about theming. Vaadin provides, Vaadin 7 comes with this theme by default. This is the Vaadin 7 theme called Reindeer. We ship also an older theme, which was shipped by default with Vaadin 6, but it's still available. If you want to use it, it's still there. And there is also a customizable theme that you can define some basic properties, like colors, fonts, and it generates a theme for you. However, you can build your own theme quite easily, and it can be completely different from what Vaadin looks now. So you can build something like this, and you have a demo of this on Vaadin site. So all these are Vaadin components, just styled differently. Okay, another interesting feature of Vaadin is Sass. How many of you have heard about Sass? All right, not so many, but there are some. Vaadin support for Sass started from Vaadin 7, and this Sass means syntactically awesome style sheets. This is not Vaadin invention, but this is a superset of CSS, which makes your life easier for those who haven't heard about it. So it introduces some more programming language-like notions into CSS. So, for example, you can define variables. And let me show you an example. So you can define a variable like blue, and it will be some color, and then use this variable name. It will be, by Sass compiler, it will be substituted for the color later, and you'll have this CSS as an output. However, you can also use some functions. So you have the darken function there, which makes the blue color 10% darker. And you can use like arithmetical operators and many other interesting things. I will not go into more details of what Sass adds to the creating of themes, but they are much easier to maintain. All right, so another important notion for Vaadin is that Vaadin incorporates server plus client development into one program. So basically, you create one code, and all the rest Vaadin does for you. But let me explain it in more details what I mean. So any web application has the following layers. So you need some backend server to handle the data, the web server which will handle the web paging, dispatching, and communication between web server and the client side. And on the client side, you need the JavaScript. So if you use the plain JavaScript application development, then you need to create all those layers by yourself. Now, there is such thing that is called GUID, Google Web Toolkit, which is developed by Google, and it allows you to create your client-side components as Java code, using Java code, and it will be automatically translated or compiled to JavaScript. GUID uses the same notions as Vaadin, so it has components, and you can create reusable components, and you don't need to code anything in JavaScript unless you need something special. So this JavaScript layer is optional. However, if you need it, then you can go there. Vaadin goes beyond that, and basically it eliminates the need for you to write the communication and the client-side layer. So all that you write is on the server side, and the rest Vaadin generates for you. If you need more control, then of course you can by yourself go and interfere how Vaadin does it, but all the rest of the layers are optional. All right, so how does this work? Yeah. What happens is that you have a component and you have some the component is on the server side, that's what you use, and you have some widgets on the client side which show what happens in the component. They react to user input and then send the messages to the component on the server side, and the component sends to the widget whatever it needs to display. So we have this state which is shared between the client and the server. So in the state there is, for example, for a text field, in the state it states what is the content of the text field. So the next time the component, you change in the component the text content, it will be propagated to the client. There is this connector which is responsible for the connection, for the communication, and it tells the widget to display the correct content. If a user clicks on a button or something like that, then the widget tells to the connector that something was clicked, and the connector calls the component on the server side. Now let's see some code. This code creates two elements, two components. One of them is a text field, and the other one is a button. We add a click listener to the button, so if the button is clicked, then it displays some text. A text that also contains something that was written in the text field. So what happens when you enter, when this program is deployed? Now you enter the URL in the browser. The browser requests from the web server the page. The initial HTML comes there, and the CSS and images in JavaScript, which loads all the rest of Vaadin components. In total, it takes something like 1.2 megabyte, but using the compression, it can go down to 300K. So with additional techniques, you can reduce it even more. After this page is being displayed, the user can interact with it. And for example, the user enters his name and clicks the button. So what happens is that the client side sends a message to the server side with the new content of the text field, and also information that the button was clicked. This message size is very small. It's less than 300 bytes. And what the server side does, because we added a click listener to the button, so the application running on the server calls this listener and responds with whatever happens here. So it responds back to the server side with, in this case, add notification message. So it's also a very small message that says, please show a notification with that kind of text. All right. So now I want to do a live coding session. I'm not sure how I'm going to do with this microphone. It would be quite difficult, but can you hear me now? Yeah, all right, great. So we'll create a documentation manager. Right. I have Eclipse for Java EE with Vaadin plugin installed. So what you need to create a Vaadin application is to use new Vaadin project wizard. Let's call it, yeah, I already have one document manager here, but let's say doc manager. All right. We will choose Vaadin's, we will choose Servlet 2.4 and just finish. I've chosen the Servlet different from the default just because Jetty that I used to run doesn't support 3.0. Jetty 6 doesn't support. Okay, so we click finish. There are some dependencies that are automatically downloaded. So the generated project contains this code. That's the only thing that it contains. Can you hear me well? Yeah, okay, thanks. All right, so we can run this project, the generated by default project, run Jetty. Right. Let's see, it started. Okay. So the URL is this. Let's use Chrome. Okay, something is wrong. Probably this. Okay, so here is our application up and running. If you click, then it shows that you have clicked. That's what happens here. So this code, can you see the text? So let's enlarge it. Just a second. All right. Okay. I guess you all can see now. Right. So what happens here, this is the default, the generated application by default. There is a vertical layout, there is a button. On click, the button says, the button adds a label to the layout. Thank you for clicking. Now let's remove all this content and write something more interesting. So what we want to do is document manager that will display files in a directory and allow us to see them, see their content, or even edit their content. Let's use a combo box for the beginning. Okay, so we create a combo box, select. Right. We need to import it, of course. And then we set the content to the combo box. So let's see how our application looks now. Okay, we have a combo box. Now what we need to do is to feed to the combo box. 1 second. We need to feed some oops. Is it still working? Okay. All right. Just excuse me. So we need to feed some data to the combo box. I already explained to you about the data model, data source model. So a combo box is a container. It can contain some items. So we set sorry. All right. Set container data source. Now we have to create this data source, and we will create a data source from a directory. So file system container, let's call it docs. New file system container, new file. I have some docs in documents in a folder called temp docs. All right. We have to import something. And then when we set the data source to this, we should see the files in the combo box, the file names. Let's see how it works. All right. So we have the files in the combo box. Now there is only 200 files in this folder, but it can be thousands and thousands of files. It's lazy loading. It's quick. It doesn't matter how many files there are. Now nothing happens when we select it. Nothing happens yet. So let's add something more interesting to this application. First, we need some kind of container some kind of layout for the components. So we will create horizontal split panel. Split panel has two components, and then we have a splitter between them. Panel. All right. So we have the panel, and the panel will be our new content, and then we add the combo box to the panel. So set first component select, and as a second component we will put a label. So new label. A label is a component that can display some text. It can also display some HTML, and that's what we want. Okay, content. Let's call it the content. Content. All right. We have to put it into the panel. Set second component, content. All right. Let's see what we have now. So we have a splitter. Here's the label. It's still empty. Nothing happens when I select it. When I select anything from the combo box. So we have to define what happens on selection. So the combo box has, let's see what it has. Add a value change listener. So whenever the value changes, this listener will be called, and we create a new value change listener, right? And what we will do when the value changes is that we change the content. Of course, we have to do it after we define this content, so we can put it somewhere here. And this has to be final. So content set set property data source. So we're still using the data source model. So you see that what I'm doing here is I'm putting a data source, I'm adding a data source to the label. And where this data comes is, now we have a text file property. So this is a text file property. It's a wrapper for a text file, and of course we still need the file. So, and the file comes from the combo box, and here we are in the listener, so we know that the value in the event, so new file, right? And event dot. Oh, actually, I don't need the new file because it's already a file. I just cast it to a file. Event dot get property get value. All right. So that should work. Let's see. We have to restart the server. It's too many changes for it to do on the fly. All right. Let's see what happens. What happens if I select a file? Well, in the meanwhile, nothing. Oh, okay. Now, there is one more catch. The combo box, by default, doesn't send this value change event immediately. What it does, it accumulates some things, and then when the user interacts with the web page, then it sends all the things. This is an optimization to reduce the traffic. But if we need, like in this case, that it immediately calls this listener, then we have to tell it explicitly. And this will be set immediate true. All right. So let's see what happens now. All right. So now we have the data is displayed. However, this is not really an HTML, like not formatted HTML. It's just a raw HTML. So what we want to do is the label to display an HTML, and it's done by set content mode .html. So at this point, the label should display proper HTML. All right, that's what we have. Within a couple of lines, we have this functionality. Now, the combo box is not really an appropriate element here. We want something to fill all this area, and we will use a table instead of the combo box. But it should be quite easy because all the Vaadin components support the same data model, so you just supply the data model, the data container, and they will display it. So the table should display the same data without any additional. All right, nothing else needs to be changed. Let's see how it works. Okay, so we have the table. All right, it has some additional properties which the combo box couldn't display. However, by default, the table is not selectable, so you can't really click on anything here. It just displays the data. So we have to make it explicitly selectable. And then, all right, so that's what we have. There is one more thing that we are still not happy about, is that the table doesn't really size with these area. So we want to use all the available area. And this is done by setting its size to full. All right, let's see how it looks now. So now the table nicely fits the area. All right, and when you select a file, it displays the file. Okay, now Vaadin wouldn't be that useful if you wouldn't be able to create custom components. So we will create a custom component now that will allow us to edit the file. Okay, so we will use still the Vaadin plugin, which will help us. New other composite. Okay, so Vaadin composite is a component that is a composite of several Vaadin components. Let's call it the document editor, or HTML editor would be more appropriate. HTML editor. All right. So this is the generated code. Not much here. I will show you another feature of Vaadin. Actually, of Vaadin plugin is the visual designer. So what we want to do here is to add a. Oh, this looks much different here than on my screen, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so I want to add a tab sheet here. Let's see. All right, so we have a tab sheet. All right. Yeah. When we added something, then it's generated here. The code is generated automatically. You can also try to edit it if you need to, but yeah. So it doesn't look nice still. We need to scale it. We pin it to the edges so it will be sized with the component. And then we add some content into the tab sheet. So it will be an, let's see, a rich text area, which would allow you, yeah, let's see, okay, a rich text area, okay, then we size it, and we also want a simple text area, which will show the raw HTML, okay, we size it as well. Then we want to rename the tabs. So let's rename the tabs. This will be the, what is it called? What you see is what you get, right? And this will be the HTML. Okay. So this code is generated here. We have this component. We can, instead of the label, use this component. Where's our label? Here. So we just use the HTML editor. All right. So HTML editor doesn't have set content mode, and it still doesn't have this set property data source, but we'll implement it in a minute. So I'll comment it out for a second, and let's see how our application looks now. Let's restart it, because probably it wouldn't be hot reloaded. All right. Okay. So we have this functionality now. Nothing happens because we still don't support the data model, but as you can see, there are two components here. Now, we need to implement this data source. Actually, we need to implement some interface to be more generic. So what we will implement is the property editor interface. Yeah, implements, right. It still doesn't want to show me property editor. Right. So now it will complain that some methods are unimplemented. Eclipse can implement them for us. And then we have to do something on the set property data source, which we are setting in our on combo box or table selection. All right. So what happens here is that we just delegate the data source to the text area, new data source, and the same for the rich text area. All right, let's see what happens now. Okay, something is wrong. Yeah, of course, I've commented it out here. All right, let's see again. Still no. Okay. Something is wrong. Let's restart the server, because maybe still it wasn't reloaded completely. Yeah, it takes time. Okay, so we have it. Now, let's see, where is this? So, we can select a file and and it's visible here. We can edit it in this rich text area, and it will be saved to the file system, and it will be propagated to all the components that use the same data source. So for example, if we put in this HTML, let's put, where's the head tag? It's quite difficult to find it here. Okay, here's the body. And we can put here hello, just to demonstrate. When we switched here, we see this hello. Because all of them use the same data source and everything is propagated and back to the file system. All right, so this is it for live coding session. I hope you all got impressed. You can see a similar application here if you download the slides. And let's continue with the third item. All right, I have here something attached. 1 second. so that, all right. So embracing Java. This is an important thing that you don't really need to use JavaScript anymore, because when you use Java, then you can use all the available tools for Java, refactoring and profiling and a lot of things that you can't really do efficiently in JavaScript. Now, because we are running on the JVM, so on the server side, the application runs on the JVM. You can use any JVM language, any language that is that runs on JVM. We have some Scala plugin, which works really nice, but you can use any language. And we support multiple development environments. Eclipse, as you saw, we have the nice plugin. We have an IDEA plugin, and we have NetBeans and Maven and Gradle and whatever you name. One important thing about Vaadin is that it's GUID compatible. So whatever you create for GUID, it is compatible with Vaadin, so it can run on Vaadin. Basically, Vaadin, in some sense, is a GUID distribution, and we'll talk about it now. So initially, Vaadin used GUID as the client-side engine that would display what happens on the server. So Vaadin used the GUID just for this purpose. However, starting from Vaadin 7, GUID was included in Vaadin, and we forked GUID, and we also fixed some things in GUID which are still not fixed in the official GUID distribution. And our release cycle is more frequent. So in that case, we can maintain stable releases of GUID without waiting for the GUID team to release their bug fixes. Vaadin is also a member of GUID steering committee, so it also affects the way GUID is managed and implemented and done, but Vaadin also contributes back to GUID with patches and bug fixes and many different things. Now, how can you get started with the Vaadin development? So what you need is an Eclipse plugin if you use Eclipse. IDEA is also has an built-in support. NetBeans you can use. Maven archetype if you prefer. And Vaadin.com has this tutorial, which is a quick way to get started. And all this section of learning is quite useful. So we have the API, the book. Vaadin book is available for free for download. On some conferences, we give it out for free as a hard copy. And Vaadin is distributed as Apache license, as I already said. No hooks attached. And we have a large community of about 100,000 developers. Quite difficult to estimate, but that's what our website usage shows. And that's it for today. You can download the slides. You can email me with any questions or whatever you have. And now it's time for questions. Yeah. Please. Excuse me. Yes, yes. Basically, now after Java 8 is released, you can use Java 8 without any problem and use all the features of Java 8. And it's actually quite nice. I haven't brought an example of how Java 8 code looks, but instead of these complex anonymous classes, you can use, as a listener, you can use Java 8 features. Yeah. Please. Vaadin widgets, well, basically there is no such thing as Vaadin widget. Vaadin widgets are GUID widgets. So Vaadin has a component, and the component is a server-side thing. On the client side, there is the widget part of a component. It's basically a GUID widget, and it's fully compatible with GUID. Yeah.
So I can essentially use a new Vaadin widget inside my GUID application.
Well, basically, there is no, again, I'll say it again, there is no Vaadin widget, because Vaadin has components. And yeah.
How do I use a Vaadin component inside the GUID application?
Well, you can't, because Vaadin is more than GUID. So Vaadin is a superset of GUID. Yeah. Please.
Our company, we use GWT.
Right.
I understand that GWT is inside.
Right.
So most problem in our development life cycle is the time of compile, the time that take longer.
Right.
Using Vaadin, I understood that we have this problem.
Well,
The first, because Vaadin seems a virtual machine that have all the components already built.
well, if I understand your question correctly, are you asking that can you, by using Vaadin, shorten the compilation times? Well, basically. Mm-hmm.
I don't need to translate in JavaScript.
Yeah.
Vaadin already provide a pre-built-in component.
Ah, yeah.
I well understand this.
Well, for pre-built components, it's true. But whenever, as I showed on some slide, that you have as an option that you can also create or interact or interfere with how Vaadin communication works or Vaadin GUID.
All provided component pre-built by Vaadin.
Yeah.
For that one, I don't need to.
Correct. So
I would also put my component in this custom
yeah.
component
Yeah. So
to extend this.
right. So when you create a custom component with a widget inside, yes, a GUID widget, you compile it once, and then you never need to compile it if you don't change it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the component code, the server-side code, is quite easy to maintain. You don't need, as you saw, I reloaded immediately. I see the changes. Yeah.
This means that the Vaadin provided me as developer an SDK to develop a widget, a GWT widget that interact in the client server.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Please.
Does Vaadin support MVC design?
Well, Vaadin supports what we use as MVP, Model View Presenter, and that's what we teach on our training. So yes, the answer is yes. Please.
What's happened if the connection between the client and server goes down for a short time?
Right. So if the connection goes down for a short time, the user will see some kind of indication that something is wrong with the connection. And after some threshold, the application will stop and say there is no connection. So that's what happens.
Because we have a WIT application that uses the RPC from the WIT system. And for example, we have customers that turn off the connection, but they have the application open in the browser.
Yeah.
After a day, for example, they
Yes.
the data.
So currently, yeah, I understand your problem. So this thing will be improved in Vaadin 7.2, but currently there is no really way to keep the data on the client side without the connection. But this is something that we are going to develop in the near future. Yeah. Do we still have time? Yeah. Okay.
I'm just a little bit concerned about the memory footprint, because for what I understand, everything that you have on the client is replicated on the server as a Java object. So you have the user desktop is somehow takes some memory on the server until the user is online. So you have a component that needs to talk with something on the side, and that something stays there until I don't log out.
I'm not sure I understand your question, but until the component is really created, it doesn't use any memory.
Okay, let's say I just log into the web application.
Right.
And on the server side, Vaadin just creates some Java objects to back up my client widgets.
Right.
So
not
create something that needs to stay in sync.
Yeah.
For instance, the object states,
Yeah.
data, and that stays in memory, I think.
Well,
Don't log out.
I'm still not sure that I understand, but there is no real.
Have a session in the server side.
Hmm?
Every client have a session in the server side.
Yeah, there is some session. Yeah, there is.
I used Vaadin 6.5.
Okay.
project,
All right.
And I just noticed that it has a big memory footprint
All
on
right.
the server. So on a single instance of a Tomcat, for instance, you can have like 30 users, and then you have to scale because it takes a lot of memory.
Right.
I don't know if it's changed. With the other products, competitors like ZK,
Yeah.
It's more obvious that you have a mirror object on the server that mirrors everything that happens on the client. And
Okay.
There's an engine that keeps those two things
Right.
synchronized, so that you do something on the client, it just replicates on the server. And you have an object on the server that
Right.
stays there until your session.
But basically, if you have, for example, a desktop application, then you also have this object in your JVM. So there is no difference in that sense.
Okay. The difference is in what stays in the session.
Yeah.
Because, I think that you have some kind of Java structure that just describes how your desktop on the client is marked.
Yeah, I think I can't answer your question right now, but we can discuss it after the. Yeah, we have already ended. Can I take one more question? Yeah, please.
Do you know ZK?
No, not really. I mean, I heard about it, but not in details.
If you are able to provide us a brief compare between Vaadin and
I can't do it now, but maybe at some point we will do. Okay. Thank you very much for listening.